So you actually started drawing at 6 years old.
Yeah, if you can call it that. At 6 years old, it was more of a scribble than a draw. But
Okay.
at the age of 6, I wanted to be a cartoonist.
Okay. And at that point, what were you really doing cartoon-wise?
At 6, probably just eating my crayons and trying to draw faces that looked like faces.
Mm-hmm.
But I had discovered Peanuts, the cartoon, at about the age of 6, and it was the first reason I had to learn to read, because I saw the art and I thought, hey, if I could read these little comics, I would have way more fun than just looking at the pictures.
Uh-huh.
So I think it actually helped me in my scholastic endeavors, because it was the first reason to actually read something.
Okay. And as you started to get older and when you got into your teens and so forth, you kept drawing?
I've always been a doodler. So if you look at any of my notebooks from school, they're full of insulting pictures about my teachers and classmates. So I've never not drawn. It's almost a compulsion. If I'm sitting there for 5 minutes and there's a pen and a surface to draw on, I'll be drawing.
Okay. So you kept drawing just by yourself for fun. You graduate high school. You go to college. And what did you study?
Economics.
Okay.
So there was a period in around 11, 12 years old when I actually applied to the famous artist school for young people. It was a correspondence course. Mm-hmm. And it turns out, I was actually 11, and it turns out that you have to be 12 to be a famous artist, they told me. So they rejected me, so I couldn't even be in the correspondence class for the famous artist school. And I kind of gave up on the idea of cartooning, because at about the age of 11, I realized that there was only one Charles Schulz, and that there were billions of people in the world. So my odds of succeeding as a cartoonist were so low that instead I decided I'll be a lawyer. So I did economics degree as what I thought was going to be pre-law. Mm-hmm. At some point I figured out, hey, law sounds like a terrible job. I'm just going to be an opponent to people. If I win, somebody else is probably going to lose. And it didn't seem like the world I wanted to live in. I wanted something where if I did a good job, other people were just happy. Not a job where if I do a good job, someone else is unhappy. So, but it still didn't seem like cartooning was practical. So after college, I went about the task of creating a normal career. I became a banker for a while, had a variety of jobs in banking. And when that didn't work out, I went to Pacific Bell, and it was another cubicle-related job, the local phone company. And that career also didn't work out for the same reason as the first one. It was a funny little period of time. And by the way, I can only tell this story now. Back then, I couldn't tell this story. My banking career ended when my boss called me in her office and said, I don't know how to tell you this, it's kind of embarrassing, but the company has no diversity in senior management. Not enough women, not enough minorities. And we got caught. Basically, the local media is busting us for having no diversity. So they said, we just can't promote you because you're a white male. And I said, well, how long is that going to last? And they said, well, no way to know. It took 200 years to get here. Who knows how long it takes to reverse it? So I quit.
Okay.
I went to Pacific Bell and got on the management fast track. I had a rocket strapped to my ass, as they like to say in those days, and I was bound for management. A few years into it, things were looking good. I finished my MBA at Berkeley. And that really is the thing that gives you the seal that lets you go higher. And one day my boss called me into his office and he said, turns out the media just busted us for having no diversity in senior management.
Again.
And he said directly, again, I'm not interpreting what happened. These were direct statements from my boss, two bosses. And my boss at Pacific Bell said the same thing. Said, can't promote you because you're a white male. Don't know when that's going to change.
Okay.
So about that time, I said to myself, I think I'm going to look around, see if there's something else I can do that doesn't require having a boss. And I thought cartooning might be a good way to at least make some money on the side, if I could figure out how to do it. So I set about the task of figuring out how a person becomes a cartoonist.
Okay. So because you were already drawing at the time, And did you actually start drawing the people at your job and start kind of playing off that at that point, or did that come later?
So at both of my day jobs at the bank and then at Pacific Bell, I was drawing my coworkers, usually humorous or insulting pictures of them. And I was also using my art to put in my presentations. So my presentations were a little bit better, PowerPoint types of things. Mm-hmm. And I was drawing on my whiteboard in my cubicle. And I'd even asked people to name the character that I drew the most, which turned out to be Dilbert. And my old boss came in and saw it and said, Dilbert. And I knew that was going to be the name. I didn't realize that he had stolen that from another cartoon until it was too late. Turns out that there was a World War II cartoon that was used just in the Navy for Navy pilots to teach them how not to do things. It was the wrong way to be a pilot, I guess. And the name of that cartoon was Dilbert. And my boss had seen that and didn't remember where he'd seen it. And he saw my comic and said, hey, Dilbert's a good name for a guy who's always screwing up. And I never got sued, but I think it's because the government owns that cartoon.
Right. So you have your job at Pacific Bell, and you start doing your cartoons at night.
In the morning.
In the morning, early morning.
Right.
And what prompted you to start actually trying to pursue and have this cartoon published?
So it was always my objective to get something published somewhere, but I didn't know how to do that. As luck would have it, and luck always plays into any story where somebody is successful, just as I was wondering how to become a cartoonist, I turned on the TV one day, and there was a TV show on how to become a cartoonist. Now, I'd never seen this before, right? But just at this moment in time, when I needed this exact information, there was a TV show with that exact information. Now, the bad luck is I missed the whole show. I just caught the end of it, so I figured out what it must have been about. And this was, before DVRs. So as the closing credits were going by, I quickly grabbed a pencil and wrote down the name of the show and the host of it. And I sent him a letter. And I said, I missed your show, but I'd like to know how to become a cartoonist. A couple weeks later, I get this 2-page handwritten letter from the host of the show. And he said, buy this book that'll tell you how to submit samples, use this kind of paper. I think he gave me some pen recommendations, which I really needed because getting the right kind of paper and pen is actually hard to figure out if you're not a professional. So I thought, hey, I know exactly what to do. So I got the materials he recommended, I got the book he recommended, put together some single panel comics. This was before Dilbert. Sent them off to Playboy and the New Yorker because they paid the most for comics. And they were rejected a few weeks later. But I felt okay about it because I had a goal and I worked toward it and I did my best, and it didn't work out, but not everything works out. So I put all my materials away, my drawing materials, and I just sort of forgot about it. A year goes by, and one day I walk onto my mailbox and there's a second letter from the cartoonist, Jack Cassidy is his name, who gave me the original advice. And the weird thing is I hadn't communicated with him in that year. I hadn't even thanked him for the advice.
Okay.
Very rude of me. So it was weird that he would send the second letter a year later. So I opened his letter and it said that he was cleaning his office. And he had come upon my samples I'd sent him a year earlier. And he said he was just writing to make sure that I hadn't given up.
Wow.
That was the only reason he wrote.
Wow.
And I had given up.
Yeah.
And I remember that in his original letter, that was his only advice. He said, it's a really competitive industry. Don't give up. So when I got the second letter, I thought, well, maybe he sees something in my samples that Playboy didn't see and the New Yorker didn't see. So I decided to raise my sights. And instead of trying to get just a single comic published in some magazine once, I would try to become a syndicated cartoonist, meaning having my comic in newspapers all over the world, because I had the book that told me how to do that, where to send the samples to get a syndication company to pick you up. And I started making some 3-panel comics that featured this character I had named Dilbert. And it was loosely based on my own experience in the workplace and my coworkers. And I sent it off to the half a dozen or so big syndication companies. And one after another, the rejections trickled in. I thought I had them all. So I thought all of them had weighed in and they were all rejections. And so once again, I took all my materials, put it in the closet, forgot about it.